Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Gostola, managing editor for shadowproof.com, also the curator of the Dissenter newsletter. I'd like to go through the series of denials, non-denial denials, that have been issued by former CIA Director Mike Pompeo in relation to the Yahoo News report, which contains many, many details about the plans for kidnapping or killing WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, which were discussed by Trump administration officials as well as various other intelligence officials. This story came from Yahoo News. It was published on September 26th. On the byline, we see Michael Isikoff, and Zach Dorfman, and Sean Naylor. There were three reporters that worked on this story for Yahoo News. And they spoke with over 30 intelligence officials, former intelligence officials, as well as former Trump administration officials. And they asked former CIA Director Mike Pompeo to comment for the story. As they indicate in their report, he declined to provide any comment. Now we are seeing from Mike Pompeo that he'd like to chime in and give us his take or defend and justify it or discredit the reporting. So let's go through the non-denial denials that we are getting from Pompeo. He went on Glenn Beck's show, and this was at some point in the daytime on September 27th. So a little more than 24 hours after this story was published. And he spoke to Glenn Beck about the allegations.
But I have to ask you a question on a story that broke yesterday from Michael Isikoff, so take it for what it's worth, that says that the gist of the article, you were so obsessed with Julian Assange and WikiLeaks that you and the president were looking at really aggressive methods, including kidnapping or an assassination. One scenario included a possible shootout with Russian agents who you believed were going to try to get Assange for themselves.
Glenn, I've seen the piece. I knew they were writing on this thing. I'd say three things. First of all, it's Isikoff. We've seen he was a big Russia hoax perpetrator.
Yep, he was.
Yeah. So take that for what it's worth. Second, there are many stories out there now about how the president and I were engaged in things that were crazy. Right? There's this talk about that there was an effort to drop a nuclear weapon on China in the last week's administration. This story is of that same ilk, right? Just I couldn't tell you who they have as their sources, but those sources didn't know what we were doing. And then the third point, I guess, Glenn, is we were very worried about the fact that we had bad actors who were stealing really, really sensitive material from the United States. And I make no apologies for the fact that we and the administration were working diligently to make sure that we were able to protect this important, sensitive information from whether it was cyber actors in Russia or the Chinese military or anyone who was trying to take this information away from us. Not just commercial stuff like intellectual property theft, but real national security secrets. And so we were working hard to go after those bad actors who were trying to do that.
So was Assange and WikiLeaks, are they journalists in a media outlet or a hostile intelligence entity?
So I came to believe that they were, in fact, one of the first non-state hostile intelligence entities. They weren't engaged in even crappy reporting like Isikoff does. They were engaged in active efforts to steal secrets themselves and pay others to do the same in a way that violated both the central understandings that I think the American people get, and second, violated U.S. law as well. We were always careful. I'm all about a big, bold, strong First Amendment, but these folks were acting in ways that were deeply inconsistent with that.
What we hear in the interview is Mike Pompeo attacks Isikoff, the reporter, and he also attacks other reporting on the final weeks of the Trump administration. And even though that's entirely unrelated to the matter that was covered by these reporters at Yahoo News, he brings that up to try and sow doubt about the credibility or the veracity of information in the story. And then he defends the agency, saying that the action needed to protect the agency had to protect its secrets. The agency had to take steps to combat an organization like WikiLeaks. And then he restates that he believes WikiLeaks is and remains a non-state hostile intelligence agency without providing any concrete evidence. He again spreads this falsehood that WikiLeaks is in the business of stealing secrets from the US government. So then later that day, he went on the stage and spoke at Hillsdale College. This is a college in southern Michigan, and it's actually known in recent years for having a pretty significant population of conservative students on their campus. And he spoke at this college and was asked during the Q&A portion following his speech what he thought about this effort to go after Assange that was detailed in the Yahoo News report.
And it seems our government is increasingly unaccountable. There was a shocking story that came out just recently that there was a faction in the CIA, for instance, that intended to or planned to assassinate Julian Assange. So it seems like we have an increasing tendency toward unaccountability in our government. I just wondered if you could speak to that here in the West.
Let me just answer that last one because someone's going to go Google that. My name is on it. They assert that was me that was trying to kill Julian. So you should know, don't believe Michael Isikoff, okay? So don't believe everything you read in Yahoo News is a good start. Your core point, though, about about the administrative state and the closure.
Pompeo did not address any of the claims in the story. He just attacked Isikoff again. He attacked Yahoo News. And also, while responding to this student, he did something interesting that I remember seeing before. I saw it at a Senate hearing. Maybe you recall this.
What I wanted to see is if you could give me a yes or no answer to the question, does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir.
It does not.
Not wittingly. There are cases where they could inadvertently, perhaps, collect, but not wittingly.
Much like James Clapper, who lied to Congress when he was the Director of National Intelligence, we saw in this answer Mike Pompeo reach up and similarly scratch his forehead. So then on September 29th, a couple days later, Mike Pompeo went on Megyn Kelly's show on Sirius XM radio.
Assange, in addition to being the former Secretary of State, used to run the CIA, as we discussed. And their report a couple of days ago by Mike Isikoff, among others, is that who wrote for Yahoo, a long piece, an investigation in which they claim to have spoken to more than 30 former U.S. officials and revealed that in 2017, the CIA, which you were running at the time, plotted to kidnap Julian Assange and even discussed plans to assassinate him. They report that this sparked heated debate amongst Trump administration officials about the legality and practicality of such a plan. Again, that some inside the CIA and the Trump administration actively discussed killing Assange and even requested sketches and options for how to assassinate him. True or false?
Makes for pretty good fiction, Megan. They should write such a novel. This is classic Isikoff. I can't say much about this other than whoever those 30 people who allegedly spoke with one of these reporters, they should all be prosecuted for speaking about classified activity inside the Central Intelligence Agency. Maybe they didn't. Maybe Isikoff just made it up. But you should know I take seriously my responsibilities to protect that information. Second thing, there is no doubt WikiLeaks is in fact a non-state hostile intelligence service. They're actively seeking to steal American classified information. This isn't good reporting. This isn't asking someone to leak. This is working to steal secrets from the United States of America. We have a responsibility to protect that information. And the Trump administration worked doggedly every day to do just that.
Now, I'm gleaning that the answer is therefore false. You're saying if it's fiction, you deny the charges, you deny the report.
So Megan, I read the article just the other day. There's pieces of it that are true. Were we trying to protect American information from Julian Assange and WikiLeaks? Absolutely yes. Did our Justice Department believe they had a valid claim which would have resulted in the extradition of Julian Assange to the United States to stand trial here? Yes, I supported that effort for sure. Did we ever engage in activity that was inconsistent with U.S. law? You know the rules here, Megan. You know precisely how the CIA operates, in the sense of we're not permitted by U.S. law to conduct assassinations. We never acted in a way that was inconsistent with that, nor did we ever circumvent. There's some suggestion in this article that we circumvented the lawyers to conduct these kinds of.
Well, we know we
rogue
never
campaigns.
acted in it because Julian Assange is still alive. The reporting is that there was a plot, that plans and sketches and pretty detailed discussions.
Yeah, I can say we never conducted planning to violate U.S. law, not once in my time.
All right, so let's go through what Mike Pompeo says in this clip. Makes for pretty good fiction. So attacking the story, classic Isikoff attacking the reporter again, but then significantly, he calls for mass prosecutions of the 30 plus sources, these former Trump administration officials and former intelligence officials who spoke to the Yahoo News reporters, because he says they were revealing classified information. And by saying this, by calling for their prosecutions, he's essentially confirming that this story is based in fact. And then he catches himself. You say, "Oh, maybe they did make it up. Maybe they didn't really know." And he says later that WikiLeaks is a non-state hostile intelligence service. They were defending he's defending the attention that was given to WikiLeaks. This is similar to what he told Glenn Beck. And so Kelly asks, importantly, Megyn Kelly says, do you deny the reports? And he says, well, there's pieces of it that are true. So now, after appearing on Glenn Beck, after going before the students at Hillsdale College, he finally concedes that there are parts of the report that are truthful. And then he says, did we ever engage in activity that was inconsistent with U.S. law? He's mentioning there are rules here that were not permitted by U.S. law to conduct assassinations. And then he talks about the part where it suggests we circumvented the lawyers. Well, Megyn Kelly has another good follow-up, which is to say that the reporting was that there was a plot, that there were discussions about this. It wasn't obviously that he was assassinated, because he's still being held and he's alive at Belmarsh High Security Prison. Then Pompeo responds, we never conducted planning to violate U.S. law, not once in my time. But that's not a denial of the allegation that there were plans to assassinate Assange, because the story clearly documents that there were discussions about whether it would be legal to assassinate Julian Assange, about whether it would be legal to put Julian Assange on a plane and subject him to a rendition that brought him to the United States. And everything that they talk about that are operations targeted at the media organization, there's a veneer of legality to those conversations as well. And although it does say that they make an effort to have some of these meetings and conversations without lawyers present, it's clear that if any of this is going to move forward, they're going to see whether the CIA has a clear authority as approved by the Gang of 8 in Congress and as approved by the executive branch, the White House, the highest ranks of the White House, and to be signed off and approved by the Justice Department, that they're going to consult all of these parties and figure out where they can take a position, and they have to be able to get away with it without causing a scandal.
Can I just ask you about it? Because I confess I wasn't all that up to speed on what WikiLeaks had reported on this Vault 7. Vault 7 is, it detailed the CIA's electronic surveillance and cyber warfare activities from 2013 and 16. And apparently WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, got their hands on it, reported on it. How damaging was that?
Again, the response to efforts to take American secrets is very sensitive stuff, Megan. I'll say this generically. When our secrets are stolen, when we have deep efforts that the United States has been using to counter our foreign adversaries, ones like we just spoke the first 30 minutes about, Al-Qaeda all across the world, when bad guys steal those secrets, we have a responsibility to go after them, to prevent them from happening. And then once we find that they were able to do that, they were successful at doing that, we have the absolute responsibility to respond. It is expensive. It is time consuming. Gathering this intelligence is hard work. It takes years to do and can take just minutes for it to be stolen by groups like WikiLeaks.
As you can hear, even Mike Pompeo's own dog knows that he's full of shit. So to recap, Mike Pompeo doesn't deny that the CIA engaged in operations intended to destroy and disrupt WikiLeaks. Mike Pompeo doesn't deny or do anything to refute the allegations around kidnapping and plotting to abduct Julian Assange and put him on a rendition flight to the United States. When asked about the plans to assassinate, he says that everything they ever discussed in the CIA was legal. And I think that reflects the story. The story shows that all of these discussions were carried out with an eye towards the need to be able to get away with it. So could they legally plot and carry out an assassination of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange? And clearly the answer ended up being no, but the story isn't that Julian Assange was assassinated. He's still in jail. And so I think Mike Pompeo has verified key details of the story. Thank you for tuning into this segment. If you'd like to support the work that we're doing, get the latest updates on the war on WikiLeaks by the CIA, as well as the case against Julian Assange, the extradition case, and updates on various whistleblower stories, I encourage you to subscribe to thedissenter.org. And also every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern, we do a show called The Dissenter Weekly, covering latest whistleblower stories from the past week. So thank you, and